like to think I run a tight operation. My name is Ashley Brennan, 34, corporate attorney, golden blonde, owner of a Boston brownstone that I keep so clean it makes people uncomfortable. I win arguments for a living. I don't do mess, I don't do chaos, and I absolutely do not do surprises. So when Gloria, my housekeeper of 4 years, retired in March with a fruit basket and a card signed in loopy cursive, I handled it the way I handle everything. Efficiently. I called an agency, reviewed profiles, picked the best one on paper, and arranged a key exchange entirely over text. I never met her in person before the first day. That felt fine. Professional, even. That was how Jennifer Cruz entered my life. I knew almost nothing about her. 26, good references, available Tuesdays and Fridays. Her texts were cheerful in a way that I found mildly excessive, but tolerated because the apartment was consistently spotless. She once left a sticky note on my pantry that said the soup cans were staging a rebellion. I handled it. I threw it away. I took it back out of the trash. I threw it away again. I didn't examine that behavior too closely. 3 months passed without incident. Then came the Tuesday in May that rearranged everything. I lost a deposition. Badly. Opposing counsel produced a document my client swore didn't exist, and I stood in that courtroom watching 6 weeks of my work collapse like wet paper. I canceled my afternoon, drove home with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached, and walked through my front door without once thinking about the fact that it was Tuesday. I went upstairs. The bedroom door was half open. I pushed it. She was standing at my full-length mirror, wearing my black lace bralette and the silk slip I bought in New York last fall. Her hair, and God, I hadn't been prepared for the hair, was this vivid, shocking pink, bubblegum bright, loose around her shoulders. Her work clothes were folded neatly on the edge of my bed. She wasn't doing anything wrong, exactly. She was just looking at herself, quietly, carefully, like she was wearing something she'd already decided she wasn't allowed to want, and she was giving herself 60 seconds with it anyway. It was the most private thing I'd ever accidentally seen. Then she shifted and caught my reflection in the mirror. The sound she made, oh God, it was somewhere between a gasp and a groan. She spun around, already grabbing for her jeans, her face completely drained of color. "Miss Brennan, I'm so sorry. I was putting laundry away and I just... Please don't call the agency. I need this job. I know that doesn't excuse it." "Stop." She stopped. "Get dressed, in your own clothes, then come downstairs." I turned around before my expression could do anything I'd regret. I poured 2 glasses of water. I don't know why 2. Jenny came down in her jeans and her cleaning company polo, pink hair pulled back, hands twisted in her lap. She sat on my bar stool like she was waiting for sentencing. "I'm not calling the agency," I said. She looked up. "But this is my private space. That was a significant overstep." "I know," she laughed once, short, miserable, humorless. "I genuinely cannot believe myself right now." "Come back Friday. We continue as normal." "Why aren't you firing me?" I gave her the cleanest available answer. "Because replacing you would be inconvenient." She nodded slowly. At the door, she turned back. "Thank you, Miss Brennan." I didn't respond. I stood in my kitchen for a very long time after the door closed, staring at 2 water glasses and thinking about the word inconvenient. I already knew that. I just didn't know what the right word was yet. Or maybe I did, and that was the problem entirely. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Jenny. "I left your laundry folded on the chair. I'm really sorry." I picked up the phone, put it down, picked it up again. I typed something true, something I hadn't planned on saying. My thumb hovered over send for a long moment. Then my work phone rang from the other room and I answered it automatically, the way I always do. And I never sent it. Not that night. I am not a woman who buys people things. Let me be clear about that. I'm precise with my money the same way I'm precise with everything else. intentional. So what happened at that department store 3 weeks after the incident? I still can't fully explain it. I was downtown buying work shirts, completely routine. Then I spotted Jenny across the floor. She was in her own clothes, jeans, a worn brown jacket, earbuds in, standing in the lingerie section holding an ivory silk chemise against herself. She wasn't shopping, she was just looking at it the way she'd looked in my mirror, like something beautiful that had nothing to do with her actual life. She checked the price tag, put it back, exhaled through her nose the small, quiet sound of resignation, and walked away. I waited until she was gone, then I walked over, picked it up, and took it to the register. I drove home telling myself it was a one-time thing. I left it on her cleaning caddy the following Tuesday. No note, no explanation, just the chemise, folded. Her text came at 9:47 that night. "Miss Brennan, I can't accept this." I typed 4 different responses, deleted all of them, finally sent, "Consider it a uniform." A pause long enough to question every decision I'd made in 34 years. That's a terrible excuse. I know. It's beautiful, thank you. I put my phone face down and stared at my ceiling for a very long time. Things shifted after that. Slowly, without announcement. I started coming home before Jenny left instead of after, made coffee automatically, 2 cups, without discussing it. She took hers without comment, like we were just 2 people who shared a kitchen sometimes. We started talking. Really talking. She had opinions about my furniture arrangement she'd apparently been storing for months. I had opinions about her true crime podcast habit. "You listen to murder stories while alone in other people's houses," I said flatly. "It keeps me alert. It should make you paranoid." "I mean," she said, laughing, "you bought a stranger lingerie, so arguably we're both doing weird things." I took a long sip of coffee. "You've been saving that." "Weeks," she confirmed cheerfully, and disappeared down the hallway. I stood there smiling at my kitchen wall like an absolute idiot. Then Rachel happened. Rachel Cho, fellow attorney, sharpest person I know, notices absolutely everything. She found a department store receipt on my desk during lunch and held it up with the energy of someone who'd been waiting years for this moment. "Lingerie receipts, Ashley. Who is she?" "Nobody. Personal purchase." "You look weird." "I look completely normal." She left. I spent the rest of the afternoon feeling like I'd been caught doing something I hadn't admitted to myself yet. That evening, Jenny was at the brownstone. I came home, and instead of our easy warmth, I was just cold, clipped, professional. Jenny watched me carefully and said nothing. She finished early and left without her usual goodbye. Her text arrived at 9. Did I do something wrong? I stared at it for 20 minutes, sat in my dark living room with the city coming through the windows and the apartment smelling like lemon and that soft floral thing that had started to feel less like clean and more like her. I typed, "You're my housekeeper, Jenny." I sent it knowing exactly how it would land. Her response came 4 minutes later. "Right, of course. Good night, Miss Brennan." Miss Brennan. I put my phone down and didn't pick it up again. Outside, Boston carried on completely indifferent to the fact that I had just deliberately hurt someone I was terrified of meeting. And the worst part? She deserved so much better than that. Jenny stopped coming. Not permanently, just she called in sick the following Tuesday, then rescheduled Friday, then sent a brief, polite message through the agency portal the week after. Family thing. Apologies for inconvenience. Professional. Distant. Exactly the tone I'd taught her to use with me. I rattled around my brownstone like a marble in a shoebox. I cleaned my own apartment badly, reorganized the pantry, and immediately made it worse. Found a sticky note tucked behind a cabinet I'd somehow missed. "The mugs on the top shelf are lonely. Consider a rotation." Smiley face. And stood in my kitchen holding it like a person with absolutely no self-awareness whatsoever. I called the agency. "Just confirming Jenny Cruz is still assigned to this account. Yes, they said. Is there a problem? No, I said. No problem. I hung up and sat down on my kitchen floor. There is a problem, I thought. The problem is me. She came back on a gray October Friday, quieter than I'd ever seen her. The pink hair was pulled back tight, no humming. She moved through the apartment efficiently and kept her eyes on whatever surface she was cleaning. I was working from home. I was not working. At 1 o'clock, I closed my laptop. I handled Bings poorly, I said. She kept wiping the counter. You don't have to explain yourself to me. I want to. I crossed the kitchen and stopped a careful distance away. I used something true as a weapon. I knew it would hurt when I sent it, and I sent it anyway because I was scared. That wasn't fair. She set down the cloth, turned around slowly. What were you scared of? I held her gaze. This was the moment. I could rebuild the wall, or I could just stop. You, I said, specifically how much I look forward to Tuesdays and Fridays. Something moved through her face, complicated and warm. Then she laughed, soft, almost involuntary, like she couldn't help it. That's genuinely the least smooth thing anyone has ever said to me. I'm a lawyer, not a poet. Clearly, but she was smiling now, really smiling. I missed talking to you, in case that changes anything. It changes everything, I said. The kiss happened on a Wednesday, completely ordinary Wednesday, nothing special about it, except Jenny was reorganizing my pantry for what I maintained was the third unnecessary time, and we were arguing about my organizational system, and she turned around holding a jar of cumin that had apparently been missing for a month, laughing, genuinely laughing, hand pressed against the cabinet, and I reached out and brushed a strand of pink hair from her face like I'd been doing it forever. She went completely still. Ashley, she said quietly, tell me if you don't want this. She looked at me for a long moment. I've been wanting this since you didn't fire me. So I kissed her, slow and deliberate, one hand cupping her jaw. She made this soft sound against my mouth, somewhere between a sigh and a moan, like something she'd been holding for months, finally releasing. I felt it in my chest, like a key turning. When we separated, she pressed her forehead to mine, eyes closed, smiling. Hi, I said back. Hi. It wasn't seamless after that. We had hard conversations about money and power and what it meant that I signed her paychecks. Jenny was clear. She didn't want to be kept. She wanted to be chosen. Those are different things, and she needed me to understand that. I did, eventually. There was a night I woke from a bad dream at 3 a.m. and checked my phone out of a reflex I hadn't had before Jenny. She'd texted at 3:03, thinking about you, and I called immediately and she answered on the first ring, voice warm with almost sleep, and we talked until sunrise about nothing and everything. When we finally hung up, I lay in the dark thinking about sticky notes and sad ferns and a pink-haired woman in my mirror wearing something beautiful like a secret. The first morning she stayed, I came downstairs to find her already awake, barefoot, making eggs in my kitchen with music playing low. She hadn't noticed me in the doorway yet. I stood there and watched her move through my space, this space I'd kept so controlled for so long, and felt something open in my chest like a window in spring. "You're staring," she said without turning around. "I'm allowed. You're in my kitchen." "You're always in my kitchen." "Now it's different." She turned around then, looked at me with that clear, warm, completely unguarded expression that still makes me feel like I've won something I didn't deserve. "Yeah," she said softly, "it is." And standing there in my kitchen, barefoot, golden blonde hair a mess, holding my coffee with both hands, I thought about how I almost sent that text the night everything started, how I almost told her the truth before I was ready, how terrifying that was, how lucky. She was still smiling at me. I smiled back. For once in my life, I had absolutely nothing to argue about. Spring comes. The agency contract lapses in April. Neither of us mentions it. Jenny's design program ends in May, and she gets a client, a small one, an apartment renovation in Cambridge. She called me from the empty space to describe what she sees in it, the light, the proportions, what it wants to be. I sat on my office windowsill and listened to her and thought about the sticky notes on the pantry and the sad fern and the ivory chemise and the whole improbable accumulation of small things that made a life with someone. Jenny still tidies things when she's at the brownstone because she could not help it. It is simply who she is. I still leave the mail in the wrong place because I cannot help it either. We argue about the pantry with the regularity and comfort of a long-established ritual. The fern was thriving. There are 2 coffee mugs on the counter every morning. On a Tuesday in June, exactly 1 year after a bad deposition and an unlocked door and a moment of devastating accidental honesty in a bedroom mirror, I came home to find Jenny at the kitchen island with her design sketchbook, feet tucked under her, completely absorbed in something she was drawing. She didn't look up. "There's coffee." I set down my briefcase, loosened my blazer, went to the counter, and poured myself a cup. I stood there for a moment in the quiet of the apartment, the warm, lived-in, slightly over-organized quiet of it, and looked at this woman in my kitchen like she belonged here. Because she did. Because I made sure of it. And, perhaps more importantly, so did Jenny. "Hey," Jenny said softly, still drawing. "How is court?" I took a sip of coffee. I thought about everything it took to get to a Tuesday like this one. "Good," I say. "Really good."